Rahm Kota was a Jedi Master and battlefield general during the times of the Clone Wars. Upon the deployment of the clone troopers, Rahm Kota held a strong prejudice against the manufactured soldiers, believing they were unfit for warfare. It was this bias that proved to save his life in the event of Order 66, as he had surrounded himself with recruited militia troops rather than the clones themselves. Kota would go on to fight the newly forged Galactic Empire amidst Palpatine's ascendancy as Emperor, targeting vital strategic locations and retreating back into hiding, in a form of guerrilla warfare. Eventually, Vader's secret apprentice Galen Merrick would confront the general, and blind him, and it was an epic battle amidst an orbital station above the planet Nar Shaddaa. Somehow surviving the fall amidst his defeat, Kota fell into a serious state of depression, degrading himself into a wandering drunkard. His connection to the Force severed. It wasn't until he was found by Galen Merrick on Bespin's Cloud City that he had revitalized his purpose and joined forces with his secret apprentice in the gathering of a rebel alliance. Amidst his later rescue from the hands of the Emperor and the subsequent death of Merrick, Rahm Kota would again be recaptured in a mission on Ki-Adi-Mundi, be forced to survive in a gladiator-like arena for his captor's amusement. He would eventually be found by Merrick's clone, Starkiller, who would go on to lead the attack on Kamino and assist in the seizure of Darth Vader himself. Although Darth Vader would ultimately go on to be freed from his imprisonment, Rahm Kota had proven himself a persevering Jedi survivor and a distinguished battlefield leader. His role is vital to the establishment of the Rebel Alliance and the eventual downfall of the Galactic Empire. A Jedi battlemaster preceding the events of the Great Galactic Civil War, Kao Cen Darach was a reputable warrior and a staunch adversary of the dark side in the times of the Old Republic. Darach was noted as creating tension between himself and the Order due to his complete rejection of anything unaligned with the light side. As such, he was positioned far away from the center of the Republic, in an orbital security station above the ancient Sith homeworld of Korriban. When the Sith Empire returned to reclaim its ancient birthplace, Kao Cen Darach and his Padawan Satil Shan confronted the revealed Sith Lord Vendikan and his apprentice Malgus. As the Jedi engaged their dark counterparts, Darach eventually led his Padawan away to warn the Republic of the Sith's return. As such, Darach was left to finish the fight for himself, engaging two powerful adversaries simultaneously and alone. Employing his extensive combative knowledge, he held his ground for an incredible period of time against the Sith duo, and ultimately incapacitated Lord Vendikan through the use of the unorthodox. However, exhaustion had caught up with the Battlemaster, and he was subsequently cut down by the young Sith apprentice Malgus, ending his life. Kao Cen Darach was remembered by his Padawan as an incredibly principled Jedi and a vanguard of the light side. He was immensely courageous and unshakable in his belief. He was everything that a Jedi Master is meant to be. Rahm Kota seemed to be at the tail end of his middle age, at about 60 years old, so likely now well past his physical prime. Despite this, Rahm Kota has proven he's an extremely fit combatant, one able to carry himself through a fight for absolutely insane periods of time. Rahm Kota is able to meet the younger and more powerful Galen Merrick head-on, and has been noted as incredibly quick within the Force Unleashed novelization. After this confrontation, he somehow survived the fall into the planet of Nar Shaddaa, likely by landing on the passing by speeders, and this was after he had just been seared on his eyes by Galen Merrick's lightsaber. After this encounter, Rahm Kota was left permanently blinded, but continued to function perfectly once his connection to the Force was restored. He then sensed his surroundings through the Force, and as such, was arguably granted better senses than he had before. Kota is also obscenely resilient, and upon his crash landing into the world of Ki-Adi-Mundi, he sustained 17 fractured bones, 14 Class 3 lacerations, 6 Class 2 lacerations, 2 Class 4 lacerations, moderate abdominal hemorrhaging, a severe concussion, and 5 missing teeth. Despite these grueling injuries, the medical examiners had noted that Kota was never in any dire danger, as his connection to the Force was all the technicians could think of to explain his incredible perseverance. By far his most incredible physical feat is his time in the arena of Ki-Adi-Mundi. It is here he fought for a week straight with no rest, pitting himself against countless warriors and dangerous animals, including a krayt dragon. If it wasn't already made clear, it must be said that Kota's connection to the Force melded him into a man nearly unbreakable by exhaustion nor injury. He will likely be able to keep a very consistent pace while in combat, and will take nothing less of a killing blow before he ceases the threat he poses to his opponent. Kao Cen Darach appeared to be of middle age, and therefore firmly within his physical prime. His title as Battlemaster insinuates a respectable degree of physicality, and he has proven his capability, as seen in the Old Republic Return trailer. His fighting style was very well-rounded, and also very acrobatic. He was able to meet the demands of such a fighting style in a manner that allowed him to combat both Vindican and Malgus simultaneously, and to do so more effectively and longer than most Jedi could boast. However, Darach certainly had a limit, as made evident in his death at the hands of Malgus, so he is not inexhaustible. However, as a Zabrak, Darach is granted a higher pain threshold, as well as a second heart, adding a degree of physical resilience most human counterparts would be hard-pressed to match. This is a very unusual verdict, and the fact that Zabraks almost always hold a somewhat significant advantage over humans when it comes to physicality. It goes without saying that Rahm Kota can handle exhaustion very well, or outright avoid it altogether for an incredible length of time. Kao Cen Darach's defeat at the hands of Malgus was largely attributed to the limits of his endurance. However, this is not to say that Darach isn't capable of long duels, as he was combating two very powerful opponents on his own, pressuring them both offensively and defensively through a style that was both well-rounded and also very acrobatic. It was obvious that it was his exhaustion that contributed to his defeat, something Kota has proven he can cope with much more effectively. Rahm Kota's injuries in his crash landing are also worthy of note, as they are again a feat Kota holds over Darach. However, these injuries were treated before Kota was released into the arena, and although it was noted that these injuries were not of a dire threat to the Jedi, this does not mean he would be able to perform well in combat, or even at all while in this state. These injuries were hastily treated, so Kota was of course not in the best of condition while in the arena, but given Darach's Zabrak biology, I believe he could perform to a similar capacity in a similar state of injury. In fact, I would go on to argue that he could even surpass this feat, as Zabraks are credited to possessing extremely high pain resistance and a second heart. It is due to Kota's endurance and Darach's Zabrak biology that no edge will be given in physical prowess, as they each hold an equally beneficial advantage over their counterpart. Rahm Kota is a highly respected general and battlefield tactician, and as such often led from the front lines himself. His chosen fighting form, as indicated in the Force Unleashed role-playing guide, is Form 7 Juyo, and the descriptions of his attacks within the novelization support this claim. Juyo is an incredibly aggressive style that is demanding both physically and mentally. Known as the Ferocity form, this style was similar to Itaru in that it was very energetic and spontaneous, but differed in that it was less elaborate in its movements, and also more erratic and unpredictable. It's an exceedingly chaotic fighting form that requires an incredible amount of physical output, as well as extreme mental conditioning. The fact that Rahm Kota is able to use this form, and simultaneously function as a battlefield general, leads me to believe he possesses a very strong and disciplined focus. The Battlemaster Sinjalik had noted within the Great Holocron that for one to learn Juyo, they must have knowledge of several other lightsaber forms. As seen in the Force Unleashed novelization, Rahm Kota had switched fighting forms in an attempt to off-throw Galen Merrick.
Realizing he couldn't penetrate it, Kota backed off and tried a different style. Slow, deliberate, with sudden and devastatingly quick strikes.
This powerful and deliberate fighting style, as well as the various instances of Kota utilizing blast deflection and a reverse grip, point to proficiency within the fifth form of lightsaber combat, both Xian and Djemso variations. Xian is a style that prides itself on a solid defense, with swift counterattacks and aim blaster deflection. Djemso is a form that was created for lightsaber dueling, which enabled the user to make use of powerful strength-based attacks and overhead strikes. In consequence to Kota's use of these forms, it's reasonable to believe he's fairly adaptable and able to use all these styles to similar degrees of effectiveness. While Kota's only been seen in one lightsaber duel, isn't impressive enough of a showing. This is made evident considering Galen Merrick was a remarkable duelist himself, and the secret apprentice was forced to make use of the environment and his force abilities to gain a significant advantage over Kota. All in all, Rahm Kota is a fiercely disciplined combatant and tactician, one forged from many years of experience as a Jedi Master and battlefield leader. While he isn't one of the legendary swordsmen of his era, he has proven himself a wise and experienced duelist within the flames of war, and a serious threat to even someone as powerful as Galen Merrick. Kao Cen Darach was awarded the title of Battle Master, a grand achievement among the ranks of the Jedi Order. In order for one to be given this distinction, a Jedi must have displayed advanced proficiency in all 7 of its traditional forms. He or she must be able to advise or directly oversee the instruction of lightsaber combat within the Order itself. As such, Battle Masters were very versatile while in combat, as they were able to pull from their knowledge spanning from the 7 traditional forms. It was this highly advanced knowledge that allowed Kao Cen Darach to fend off 2 immensely aggressive duelists simultaneously and single-handedly. An examination of his fighting style is made evident that his versatility is his greatest strength, or at least in the single confrontation we have seen him in. Due to his apparent versatility and his aptitude in implementing force attacks into his fighting style, I strongly believe Kao Cen Darach favored the use of Form 6 lightsaber combat, also known as Naiman. Naiman is a style that streamlined all aspects from all other traditional forms, teaching what is only necessary for one to be proficient as a duelist. This form was created with diplomats and scholarly Jedi in mind, as it was easy enough to learn while focusing one's main attention on other studies, such as diplomacy or archaeology. As such, Naiman specialists were typically a bit standard as duelists. They possessed no evident strengths nor weaknesses. However, when in the hands of a skilled and refined duelist, Naiman's inherently basic nature gives way to one much more remarkable. Kao Cen Darach was such a duelist. Pulling from his expansive experience and knowledge as a martial artist, it appears Darach could implement maneuvers from different fighting forms into his use of a Naiman, washing away any preconceptions one might have about his chosen fighting form's inherent nature. As Naiman's foundation relies heavily on aspects from other forms, streamlining these maneuvers into his fighting style is relatively easy for someone of such skill, as Form 6's moderation allows for easier implementation of these desired styles. Darach is able to use this fighting style in a way that allowed him to adapt to the different needs of combating these 2 Sith opponents, stonewalling their onslaught and off-balancing them through the use of force attacks, redirects, and his own offensive. Kao Cen Darach posed an extremely evident threat to Vindican and Malgus both for the entirety of the duel. Darach seemed to favor the implementation of Atario in his use of Naiman, making use of flamboyant acrobatics and diving maneuvers. Employing Naiman's compatibility with dual blades, Darach had gone so far as to wield both his standard saber and Satele saber staff simultaneously, employing Darkai dual blades in a manner both flurried and unorthodox. This radical showing only reinforces the fact that Darach is an extremely well-practiced duelist, and able to take drastic measures in his combative style and benefit from them effectively. It was through this extreme refinement and versatility that he was able to pose a threat to this duo, and ultimately go on to defeat Vindican through the use of an unexpected and radical maneuver. While Kao Cen Darach does possess the title of Battle Master, this does not mean he's automatically a better duelist than Rahm Kota. Again, it is worth stating that the title of Battle Master is given to those who have shown proficiency in all 7 of the traditional forms. Battle Masters are very knowledgeable and well refined, but applying this knowledge and refinement in a duel falls in line with actual skill and is something different altogether. There are plenty of martial artists in the universe of Star Wars who are more refined or knowledgeable than their opponent, but were beaten by the opposing combatant due to the enemy's superior skill or effectiveness. This is not to say that being a battle master is of no consequence or benefit, but ultimately it only speaks to their breadth of experience and their versatility, not the potency of the application itself. This is not downplaying Darach's or any other battle master's skill, it's only the truth of the matter. From this standpoint, we have a tough call to make, as both of these combatants' feats are very impressive. Darach is able to ward off two powerful Sith single-handedly, and ultimately go on to defeat Vindican. While he originally did have some assistance from Satele Shan, Malgus was in complete control of this fight between the apprentices, and would have killed Satele if it weren't for Darach's intervention. So I believe this fact is almost entirely negligible. It almost makes this an even better showing for Darach, given his awareness and impressive reaction. And while some would argue that Darach's victory over Vindican was only achieved by an unusual and ambush-like tactic, it still speaks to some degree of skill and combative knowledge. Rahm Kota was able to stalemate Gale America in a duel, forcing the secret apprentice to use his superior force power and his surroundings to best the veteran combatant. Even then, Rahm Kota's defeat was only made a reality when his visions of the future caused him to lose focus and allow Merrick to overpower him. However, it should not be forgotten that Gale America had just finished killing scores of stormtroopers and rebels just previously. While Rahm Kota had been fighting too, he had much more time to rest and waited for his opponent expectantly, originally believing it was Darth Vader. This all displays that Rahm Kota was in near perfect condition, while Gale America was not. This showing is also against Gale America before he had reached his prime, not the same Gale America that was capable of going toe-to-toe with someone like Vader. From there, I'm led to believe that Darach's feat against the Sith duo is more impressive, especially considering that Darach is taking on two combatants rather than one. This is also accounting for the fact that Vindican and Malgus were both completely rested, but also used similar fighting styles to Rahm Kota himself. It is for his superior versatility and advanced refinement that I give Kao Cen Darach the advantage of martial ability. Rahm Kota used a single standard lightsaber with a green crystal. Its hilt was of heavy-duty make, and laced with interwoven leather grips. Rahm Kota kept his lightsaber placed on his back when not in use, rather than his hip, like most Jedi. Kao Cen Darach's lightsaber was also fairly standard. It housed a green crystal, and was otherwise fairly unremarkable. It was simple yet effective. Both of these combatants' lightsabers are of common make, and feature no advantages or disadvantages in comparison to the other. No edge will be given in weaponry. Rahm Kota was a very well-balanced Force user, one able to make use of both offensive and defensive abilities. In the Force Unleashed novelization, he deflected Gale America's Force Lightning with ease, laughing as he had done so. He also managed to shield himself and redirect Merrick's force pushes in the beginning of their fight, and was only later overtaken by its superior power. While Merrick wasn't as powerful as he was in his confrontation with Vader, he still boasted better force potency than most Force users could make claim to, as seen in his achievements right before his fight with Kota. Rahm Kota could dish out some serious telekinetic power himself, but his showings of doing so are pretty inconsistent. In the Force Unleashed game's depiction, Rahm Kota ripped the command station apart himself, employing extremely powerful telekinesis to dismantle it from the structure. In the novel, the station falls apart inadvertently due to the telekinetic attacks from both Kota and Merrick. I believe the best compromise between these two showings is the depiction as seen in the comic. In this depiction, Rahm Kota made use of a massive force push, which knocked the command station from its placement, due to both the power of Kota's force attack and the damage it had sustained during the duel between the two. In the game itself, Rahm Kota frequents these force attacks, and although it could be argued it is a game mechanic, it is fairly consistent with the happenings of all three of these mediums. Additionally, Rahm Kota was left blinded after his duel with Merrick, and was forced to see his world through the use of the Force rather than his own human senses. This arguably granted him better superior senses, as the outside world was of little distraction to him and the Force provided him with what he needed. Lastly, Rahm Kota saw visions of the future, although this holds no combative benefit. All in all, Rahm Kota was a fairly potent Force user, as he could defend himself from powerful telekinetic attacks and also implement them himself. These proved problematic for the immensely powerful Gale America, and therefore would be a threat to the vast majority of combatants. While it could be said his force offensive is fairly unfocused, his potency and magnitude make up for this, and his defensive abilities will guard him for force attacks of moderate magnitude, so as long as he sees them coming and has the proper time and space to do so. Kao Cen Darach's use of 9-man in itself implies a preference for force attacks, and he has made several in the single confrontation we have seen him in. He is able to blast Vendican across the hangar bay with a powerful force push, breaking his force barrier and hurling him a considerable distance. Before he had sent his Padawan away, he saved Cecile Shan's life by deflecting Malchus's powerful overhead strike with a saber throw. This is done with extreme accuracy, and also while still combating his own respective opponent. In accordance with his use of Ataru, Kao Cen Darach also made use of force-assisted acrobatics and maneuvers, enhancing his movements and increasing his maneuverability. Lastly, Darach had shown himself capable of creating force waves to off-balance his opponent, reasserting distance, and in turn preventing himself from being overwhelmed. In conclusion on Darach's use of the Force, it could be said that he is rather standard in power, as many Jedi of average capability have employed similar maneuvers. But it is the manner of Darach's application that made him so remarkable, applying his force attacks with extreme precision and aptitude within his fighting style. This in turn absolutely amplifies his effectiveness, making itself a considerable threat to Force users who even dwarf his raw potency. Additionally, Cecile Shan speculated that her former master viewed visions of the future, which was largely responsible for his troubles with the Jedi leaders and his rather vehement personality. However, this provides no combative benefits and only speaks to his connection of the Force, not his ability or power to apply it in a battle scenario. This is another tough call to make. It becomes evidently clear when comparing their use of the Force that these two Jedi are opposites of one another. Rahm Kota is very potent in his use of the Force, but applies it in a less than graceful manner, making use of extreme magnitude in a very straightforward and rugged fashion. Kao Cen Darach is a fairly standard Force user, but his application is truly exceptional, as he employs it fluidly into his fighting style and in a technique that maximizes its benefits. So this largely comes down to greater power versus superior application, and considering the disparity in power, I'm inclined to believe that Rahm Kota has the edge here. To put it plainly, Darach's superior application is not enough to trump the extreme potency and effectiveness of Kota's force attacks, despite their rather raw execution. While Darach's force powers will not be useless in this confrontation, Kota has shown that he is capable of defending himself from force attacks that are much more powerful. Also, Darach's force-enhanced movements are something Kota can deal with effectively, as he had stonewalled much of Merrick's attempt in outmaneuvering him. While I do not believe this advantage is extremely clear-cut, it is for his magnitude of power that I award Rahm Kota the edge in force powers. Given the aggressive style Juyo, Rahm Kota would likely engage first, dashing towards Darach and employing his furious assault. Darach, being familiar with the form, would begin to attempt to exploit Juyo's weakness by setting a tight guard and diving through the onslaught, seeking to find entry into Kota's lacking defenses. However, he will find himself hard-pressed, as Kota's use of Juyo is well refined, but still exceedingly chaotic. Despite this, Darach weathers the storm and stands his ground, gradually testing his opponent's mettle with the moderation of 9-man. Finally, amidst an opening, he'd make an Ataru-based attack and unleash a force wave at Kota's feet, now pressured to split his attention between the threat of Darach's saber and his telekinesis. The grizzled veteran would be forced to distance himself, as he is off-balance by the Zabrac's seamless force implementation. Looking to further exploit this distance, Darach would attempt to unleash a force push, but the bulk of its power would be broken off by Kota's force deflection, causing him to only slide back marginally. In turn, Kota would make use of his own force attacks, thrashing their surroundings and breaking his opponent's force barrier, hurling Darach into the transparent steel wall behind him. Stunned, but still capable, he would re-engage his human counterpart, but now there would be no discernible advantage between the two's dueling skills. Eventually, Kota will again exploit his force potency, offsetting Darach and gradually wearing him down. With renewed vigor and undying determination, Kota would break through Darach's waning guard and subsequently cut him down. Tested by the flames of war and the tragedy of loss, Rahm Kota is named the winner of this matchup. Thanks for watching, guys. This match was an extremely close one, as there are no truly clear-cut advantages to be given in any of the categories. However, for the very slim majority, I believe Rahm Kota's stronger force attacks and longer lasting endurance would be enough to break through Kao Cen Darach's superior versatility and seamless application. But yet again, this match was extremely close and the toughest one I've had to call yet. I'd only give Kota a 6 out of 10 advantage against Darach. I plan on addressing this within its own separate video, but I have just recently hit 10,000 subscribers, which is absolutely mind-blowing to me and something I am eternally thankful for from you guys. It was just a little over a month and a half ago that I was thanking you guys for 100 subscribers, so for me to grow that much in that short amount of time is just insane to me. Really, guys, thank you all so much. I really appreciate the support you've given me, and I'm sorry this one took so long to get out, but you can expect to see versus videos released back at the normal pace. So again, thank you guys. I really can't even tell you how much I appreciate your kindness. And like always, may the Force be with you.